you brought one thing out of the dust, just one thing that didn't wash off or get burned with the rest of your rags, the corner of a page of a book. You're not going to destroy the library or let it be destroyed. Right or wrong, it's not going to happen. So best just admit it and start working out how to sell the decision to your brain. Hey nerds, what's up? So you guys may have known that The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence was probably my top read of 2023, maybe tied with A Storm of Swords, but still one of my favorite books I've read in a super long time. So I was so excited that the sequel, The Book That Broke the World by Mark Lawrence, came out last week, and I thought I would share my thoughts with you. I obviously pre-ordered it and got it the day it came out. I was so excited. And honestly, it did not disappoint. I gave the sequel 4.5 out of 5 stars. I just really loved it. I was really swept away again. Just such a good follow-up. And honestly, a really unexpected follow-up. It didn't go the direction I necessarily thought it would, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But as a brief overview, this book does still follow Livara and Ivar and kind of what happens after the fallout of the end of book 1. And them like trying to be reunited. You have Livara, who is stuck as a ghost and kind of needs to figure that out, figure out how to get a body back and be present again, and also has to find out how to recover and kind of gain control of the book that she wrote. And then you have Ivar, who obviously is trying to find Livara, hoping she still exists, but is also trying to grapple with being outside of the single library room that he was trapped in for his whole life. But this book also introduces and spends a lot of time with some new POVs, one of which is a character we have never met before, and that's Kelcha, and she represents a new race other than humans or the Cainith. Actually, we saw them before. I don't think they were named though, unless I'm just misremembering, but it's the Gunnar. And so we kind of see a completely new story revolving around a new set of people. And it's about her and her brother and how they are slaves to the humans in Cainith. And you don't necessarily know at what point in time this is when we are first introduced to them. The other new primary viewpoint is Arpix, who obviously we know from last book. And that part of the story really revolves around him and the other librarians he was with, and what happens after their escape from the library that we saw at the end of book 1. And obviously, just like in book 1, these stories intertwine and relate to each other in ways you don't necessarily know, and it's kind of like a mystery to discover how that is going to work out. And this book definitely expands on the themes of war and the war for the library and kind of the entire direction of the world and kind of the aftermath of what is going to happen going forward. So, into my review for it. If you remember from my book 1 review, I stated the extremely unpopular opinion that book 1 almost felt like a standalone to me. Now, literally nobody agreed with that, so don't listen to me. Everyone was like, you're crazy. But for me, I didn't mind kind of the open-endedness of the ending. I thought there was a way that I could just imagine my own ending for Livara and Ivar. And I don't know, it felt closed enough, although I was obviously very excited that it was going to be a trilogy. Now, I'm stating this because I'm curious to see if the reviews will be polarized for this book, because it is such a different direction than book 1. Now for me, because I felt like I had a lot of closure in book 1, the immediate new direction and new characters really worked for me. I really loved it. I loved the themes that it evoked and introduced. But I wonder for people who were really felt that the ending was such a cliffhanger on Livara and Ivar, if that is going to be a hard shift. Now, once again, the book still does focus on Livara and Ivar. It's not like you're going to read this book and not hear about them at all. That's not the case. But there is a shift, and it worked really well for me. Curious to see how it works for other people. This definitely is a book that I think will end up linking the first and third books. It just feels like a book that expanded and widened the scope so much. All of a sudden, I kind of got a bigger view of really what the war for this library looked like and how it looked over long periods of time and what it means for our characters in their current spot. And it really expands and dives deeper on the consequences and themes of the first novel, particularly the war themes. We really get into war, genocide, slavery. What are the consequences of destroying knowledge? What are the consequences of keeping knowledge, and how we get these cyclical journeys constantly throughout history, and what that means and what we should do about it. And as a consequence of going deeper into those themes, I do find book 2 to be significantly darker than book 1. Obviously, those kind of dark undertones and themes were in book 1. I just don't think they were as kind of right there. Like, there were just points of this book that were very dark, not in a way that felt like gratuitous or anything, but just kind of more facing the reality of what war really is. And I just think the novel did a great job of really asking some interesting questions about those things and really exploring some interesting emotional landscapes and feelings about being on different sides of those elements. This was a character-driven novel like the last one. We were really diving deep into the emotions of the characters, and because of that, as a consequence, I felt even more connected and emotionally invested in some characters that I thought I already liked a lot, but I was kind of surprised at how moved I was at some of the interactions between characters I already thought I loved. But because we just got like a deeper emotional pull in this book, I felt that it was even better in that way. And obviously, Mark is just a really good writer, so there were just so many quotes that I'd stop and be like, oh, such a good quote. And I'm not even kind of a quote gal. Like, it's not something that really moves me a lot, but just like in the first book, that's like even why I opened with a quote. I never usually do that, but there were just so many good hits. He's a good writer. Okay, so just into a few maybe criticisms, or, you know, why did I give it a 4.5? Obviously, a 4.5 is a super good rating for me. I do not give out a lot of those, but it wasn't a 5 like the first book. So what motivated me to take off that 0.5? And I think it's just like, at some points in this book, I felt it was just slightly unwieldy. You know, the book deals a lot with time and time jumps and like a lot of different elements and expansive things within the library. And just occasionally, it felt like a lot. I was really having to focus. It just felt unwieldy. I think that's the word for it. Just sometimes we got a little outside of ourselves. And occasionally things just weren't super explained, or maybe just felt a little coincidental. Now, to be clear, I really trust Mark. So I actually think all of these things are kind of going to come together and be explained in the third book. I really feel that. I can tell that's where it's going. And by the end of the book, I understood the big picture. I got it. But I think unwieldy is just the right word for it. There was just occasions where it just felt a little bit like a lot. I definitely see the vision as a pathway to the final installment in the trilogy. It's not like one of those gateway books, because, you know, I always complain about number 2 books. It doesn't feel like a number 2 where like the quality's dipped or it's boring. Like, I didn't feel that way. I thought it was almost like book 1 set up the whole world and we get these really deep character emotional beats to our main characters. This one really worked on exploring and deepening the themes that were set up in book 1 while exploring some extra character depth. I can see where 3 is going to wrap the two together very nicely, and I am so excited for book 3. I think he's releasing one a year, because this was released a year after the first one, so I think that means next April-ish we will get book 3. I could not find like a title or anything. I don't think it's been announced yet, but I am very excited. Okay, that was my review of the book that broke the world. If you haven't read book 1, what are you waiting for? I really deeply loved it, and I think this is a trilogy to start with, especially because it's already written. I don't think I'm making that up. There's going to be one coming out a year. So the finale comes out next year. You won't have to wait a super long time. And 2, it's just really magical. I love it. If you read book 1 and you've now read book 2, let me know if you think it's going to be polarizing like I theorized, or if you think I'm wrong and everyone's going to love it just the same, or, you know, you give me your opinions on that below. And as always, if you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. That's the best way to support me. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, as well as other nerdy rants, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.